So good evening, good morning, good evening, good night. I'm doing my Truman Show intro. How are we doing, everybody? Welcome to, I can't remember if it's the fourth, probably the fourth conversation talking about living the principles. I'm your host, Janet Riney, and I will be escorting you through this wonderful hour with Mr. Dave Elleray. But the reason why I started having these conversations is because having been around the principles of 6 years whilst I've been in the UK anyway, just seeing a change in emphasis where I'm hearing more how-to questions, how to take this into business, how to coach with this, how to, lots of how-to questions, which are excellent because once people see this for themselves, they want to start sharing it. And we can quite naturally in our humanness ask how do we do this question? How do we do this? But I suppose for me, what I felt and what I saw was that in asking the how-to, we were moving away from the being, what we are. And I suppose what I interpreted and what I saw that Sid was pointing us towards. It's not an either or, it's the and, it's the oneness of all things, the form and the formless, the dance of our creative minds, our creative beings. And I just felt that was being lost in a lot of the how-tos. And so I just thought it'd be really great just to have these conversations. And these have been conversations I've been having with friends, or in secret over glasses of wine, and being really upset about why things are being different. I thought, well, if I'm seeing it, then maybe I'm the one who's supposed to talk about it. So here we are. And tonight my guest is Dave Elleray, who I love. Dave is just a wonderful man who has just got such a heart and a love for people. But also it was probably a couple of years ago when I first heard Dave speak about the principles. I suppose given his profession, I just heard him speak about the principles in a way that I've never heard anybody speak about it in relation to nature. Not like I can say, okay, we are the oneness, and I can look out and I can see the tree and I think I'm that tree, because in my head I know that to be true. But Dave speaks about this from an experiential knowing of how we are one. And it's always moved me and intrigued me about how does he see that? That's just like crazy. And I remember last year walking, Dave took myself and Linda Ramos on a walk in the lakes, and he was just used to stop every 10 steps and say, look at that bush, Janet, and look how amazing it is, or look at that mushroom. I'm like, seriously, dude, are we going to get to the end? It was just like, will this ever end? But the way in which he saw it just really fascinated me. And so I'm just really grateful that he's agreed to come on and just be in conversation with all of us tonight, just to share this, because I just think it's just a really beautiful way, conversation to have. And I say, given the size of the group, what we can do is actually have an interaction, have conversation. So I'm going to ask Dave just initially just to say a bit about himself and how he realized the principles, and then we'll take it from there.
Firstly, I just want to say 2 thank yous. The first thank you is to Christelle, who is in my bottom left-hand corner of my screen. Because if it wasn't for Christelle, Janet and I probably won't be having this conversation right now. Christelle was the lady who introduced Janet to me and myself to Janet. And through that introduction, I really feel like I have gained an awesome friend. And my second thank you is to Janet. And that is for asking me to talk about this subject. and ask me to talk about the principles in the way that I see them. Because it really seems to have set off a ball rolling that has breathed freshness into my life again, and the principles. And for that, I'm exceptionally grateful. I feel like coming across the principles was the biggest change that ever happened to me in my life. It changed my life entirely. And since then, I've had other realizations around the principles, but Janet's faith in the way I see it just seems to have awoken something that meant that I didn't get much sleep last night, because I was just experiencing something so phenomenally powerful. I felt mental. I was having so much insight. The insight I was having was beyond any words. There was no words attached to that thought. It was an exceptionally powerful night. So thank you, Janet. So thank you both. I don't really want to talk too much about how I came across the principles. I came across the principles at a time when I was going through massive upheaval in life. And I got introduced to it by a lady called Sue Huginson, who, long story short, I had no reason why she got me there, but she got me there to talk to me about something. And this was the something that she got me there to talk about. And my realization, the realization that I had after listening to Sydney Banks was so powerful for me that I went from a state of pretty serious depression to absolute joy, exhilaration, power, knowing, peace. My initial insight wasn't the thought, feeling, connection that is so often spoken about. My initial insight was that everything is thought. And what I saw was, when I had my insight, was a crow. I saw a crow. I listened to Sid Banks and I went out for a walk, and I went to one of my favourite places. I had a head full of stuff that I had no idea what was going on, but I knew I'd heard something. And then I saw a crow, funnily enough. And as this crow looked at me, I just had this massive rush of thought. And it basically was, to paraphrase something that was, I can't, it went along the lines of, the crow has acknowledged my existence. And in it acknowledging my existence, it has to have awareness. In that having awareness, it has the power of thought. In seeing that, I saw that thought isn't something that we just think. It's not thoughts. It's not words that run through our mind. It's not pictures and images that run through our mind, but it's a fundamental element of all existence. That swept me off my feet and turned me into an absolute evangelical knobhead for weeks. When my family disowned me, they were just like, leave me alone, leave me alone. My observations within the principles is might be going to start to upset a few people, but my observation is that it is becoming a psychology, human psychology. The principles are turning into a human psychology. I know Sydney Banks wanted to get this into psychology, but I don't think that's what he saw. I think what Sid saw was something so simple and so powerful that when we get a sense of it, we cannot help but orientate us in a direction towards something that is true and peaceful and turbulent and painful. It's all of it. But with an understanding of something more. For the last 15 years, I've been a tree surgeon, and I've worked on thousands and thousands and thousands of plants, thousands and thousands of trees. I've been really privileged to work in so many beautiful places on so many beautiful trees. But coming across these principles is, like I said in my introduction, it's made my job quite hard. Because I've started to see that we talk about these principles. This is the human experience. These principles explain the human experience. Well, they explain the tree's experience. They explain the tree's experience of what I do to it. They explain the tree's experience of each other. They explain the tree's experience of pests. They explain the fish's experience. They explain the bird's experience. They explain bacteria's experience. They explain the laws behind physics. They explain how things are, why things are. Our understanding of how the universe works, we don't cognitively know. But the knowledge that we are built of has that knowledge contained within it. And I think for me, the recombining of consciousness and thought, rather than being two elements that they're often spoke as, and I know Sid was quite adamant that they're not, the one thing. To have consciousness is to have the power of thought endowed within you. Now, a lot of people have said to me that trees don't think, trees don't have consciousness, but I would just like to talk around that a little bit. When I came across these principles, I started to notice different things. I became far more aware of life, far more aware of my world, far more aware of myself, and far more aware of what is going on. Especially within nature, it's always been a passion of mine. So this understanding has kind of driven forward a part within me that is just, I'm absolutely loving. I noticed that when I reduce a tree, the tree will react. It doesn't react in a time frame that we're used to. We can't just sit there and watch it like what we could sit and watch a dog move or a fish swim round a bowl. But the tree has an awareness that I have reduced it in size, or possibly just removed a branch, or felled it entirely. The tree has an awareness. And the reason why I say it has an awareness is because it reacts. It sticks out things like something called epicormic growth. And this epicormic growth is new, fresh growth. The trees also put it out at a time of suffering. If it's diseased, if it's got a fungus, it acknowledges the fact that it has a problem. It has consciousness, and then it knows what it needs to do. So it sticks out epicormic growth. And when you realize you can't separate thought and consciousness, you can see that consciousness isn't just something that human beings are endowed with, and therefore thought isn't just something that human beings are endowed with. The power of thought exists throughout every single kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the The algae kingdom, the fungal kingdom, and the bacterial kingdom. The power of knowledge, thought, exists within every single one of them. I then started to notice that some of these trees have some really clever things going on. And I remember being up a tree in Windermere, and it was windy and it was sunny. And I just happened to flick my visor up, and I thought I was surrounded by dragonflies. It was a pretty breezy day, but when I kind of had a good look and I stopped, because I was just surrounded by these flickering things. There was thousands of them. I thought, look at all dragonflies, look at all these. But it wasn't. It was maple keys. And as the wind blew, they flew up, and as the wind dropped, they flew down. And I wondered to myself, how does a tree understand aerodynamics to create such an absolute amazing piece of leaf technology? It was beautiful. There are other trees that do those kinds of things. Lime trees do a similar thing. Ash trees do a similar thing. But then, as I've kind of gone more, and I've just spent more time in being really, and noticing and observing, I've started to really appreciate that everything is one. That the human being is exceptionally good at separating itself. Human beings are exceptionally good at separating itself from each other. Human beings are exceptionally good at separating itself from the natural world. In fact, we actually call it the natural world, as though we are not natural. The human being is exceptionally good at separating itself from the planet. And this illusion, in my opinion, is creating one of the biggest turmoils this planet has ever seen. I started to become aware of the fact that there is always one thing going on. And I've been looking at life, and I've been seeing examples of it. And I like to share these examples because, to me, they are examples whereby knowledge, you can see that knowledge is passed between kingdoms. As I mentioned, the kingdoms before, the animal, plant, bacterial, algal, and fungal kingdoms. The kingdoms of life that exist on planet Earth. There is knowledge that spans the two. There is knowledge that integrates the two. There is knowledge that takes the two and makes it one. One of the banes of my tree surgery life has been a thorn. And I've been pricked by countless thorns. In fact, today I've got thorns in my hands from today. And they are an exceptionally effective method of defense against anything that is wishing to attack the tree. But one day when I got pricked by this thorn and I was swearing, I was a bit fed up and I was pulling it out of my hand, I realized that that thorn only worked because I have a nervous system. The nervous system receives the information, it gets passed through my nervous system, and it is deciphered as information, and I remove my hand and then I start taking this thing out of my hand. Now, the plant doesn't have a nervous system like what I have, but the plant does have an awareness that what is most likely to attack it, to eat it, to predate on it, does have a nervous system, will have a nervous system. Mammal, bird, amphibian, whatever. It will have a nervous system. I was like, that's interesting. So if that plant doesn't have a nervous system like I do, then how the hell does it know that a thorn will be an exceptionally efficient way of protecting itself. How does a nettle know that by coating its barbs full of, I think it's an alkali, that will inflict a sensation on something that is possibly going to eat it? And I started to wake up to the idea that the reason for that is because everything is knowledge. And this knowledge isn't just there because I'm here to think about it. This knowledge is there regardless of whether I'm physically here or not. This knowledge was existent before human beings came on this planet. The power of thought, the power of consciousness was existent before human beings came on this planet, and it will still be there. It will still exist once human beings have gone. Thought and consciousness have powered an entire universe since it began, if it began, however it began. Because what I've started to see that is that, as Alan Watts puts, within an emptiness of space, within the nothingness of space lies an entire universe. But in that nothingness, there is infinite knowledge. And when I became aware of that, I started to see, I've realized that I don't have to, this could be the easiest conversation I could have with anybody, because I'd just say, look at that. What do you see? You see knowledge. You are using knowledge to see knowledge. It's all knowledge. The fact that a bee and a flower interact in the way that they do to create pollination, it's not just bees, it's birds, it's bats, it's moths, it's other insects, it's reptiles and amphibians. They all pollinate. Some rats pollinate. But how? How is it that some plants can develop a scent that is mimicking identically the smell of rotting flesh to attract flies to pollinate it, when the plant doesn't have eyes like what we do? It also doesn't have flesh like what we do. Yet there is a knowledge built into that plant that creates the ability within that plant to create such a thing that exists. I remember, it's a bit sad now. It's a bit sad because I brought a mate along. I haven't named mine. Actually, it's not mine, it's Jenny's. But my sister's named hers Gilbert, and this one's a bit sad, and this is a mimosa. And I don't know if he's going to do it, but I love mimosa. Do you see that? Can you see that? This mimosa is reacting to my touch. Now, my sister said, hers is called Gilbert. She said, Gilbert's got a lot more tame now. I said, why is that? And she said, because when I first got him, she said, all I had to do was breathe on him and he closed up. And she said, and now I can go up and touch him and I actually kiss him and he doesn't even bother closing. He knows that he's safe. The plant's learned. The idea that consciousness and thought is something that is endowed to human beings is one of the biggest misunderstandings. Everything is knowledge. We are an idea. All humanity is, all human beings are, is an idea of a knowledge that has constructed an entire universe. The same as the trees are an idea. The same as the sea is an idea. The same that planet Earth is an idea. The suns are an idea. Every single planet is an idea. Everything is built from knowledge. The laws of physics are held together. Everything has built into it a knowledge. And this knowledge is something which then we as human beings separate ourselves from. This thing that we are so awesome at doing, we separate ourselves from this knowledge and we think that we are far greater, far more important. We are not it. When I realised that this knowledge that I am, that is giving a bee something that it likes, colours that a bee, infrared, ultraviolet reflection that a bee is attracted to, scents that other insects are attracted to. When I started to see that that flower wouldn't work if it wasn't for the power of thought within a bee, because it wouldn't be able to recognize anything without the power of thought. His senses would literally be useless without the power of thought, same as ours. So built into the flower is a knowledge, and built into the bee is a knowledge. You see ultraviolet, go and have a look. And you'll see them, they do it, they buzz around and they go and inspect things. Is it, or is it, or it isn't? And pollination takes place, the plant reprocreates, the bee goes off and makes its honey and does its thing. And then you realize that this whole life thing, all life, is a consumption of itself. All life consumes life. And science is looking for perpetual energy, a source of perpetual energy. Life has got that cracked. Consciousness has that down to a T. All things eat organisms. Waking up to this stuff has made me see these principles in such a different way. I got really sidetracked down the direction of psychology and human psychology, and now I really feel like one of the biggest problems with the human psyche is that it thinks it's separate. It thinks it is on its own. It's lonely being on your own. A lot of suffering happens to people who think that they're on their own. But to see that we are an organism born of planet Earth. My body is completely constructed of elements found within the Earth. I'm built of water, carbon, calciums, iron. All these things that I need to intake through other living organisms to keep this physical being going. It's all in harmony. The whole biome of the Earth is in harmony. It consumes itself and keeps itself going. Consciousness keeps itself going. Thought keeps itself going. When we stop seeing thought as being, it can be really misleading when we talk about thought. People can get really tied up on the idea that thought is the words that run through our heads. Thought creates a feeling. If you think this, then you will feel that. Yeah, absolutely correct. But thought is far greater than that. Thought is an infinite field that is consciousness. And consciousness is endowed within every single thing in this universe. It's all of it. The only thing that is going on is consciousness. Thought, as we talk about in mind, but it's the same thing. God, it's the same thing. To get a sense of that is to get a sense that we are literally the universe experiencing itself. We are literally consciousness experiencing itself. We are God experiencing itself. We are mind experiencing itself. We're thought, the power of thought experiencing itself. It's all the same stuff. This knowledge, this knowledgeable, unseen, unmeasurable, infinite knowledge that is just, has everything down, is what we are. But we take this power of thought and then we create language. Human beings created a language. Now, one of my friends told me that the original start of the Bible wasn't, in the beginning was the word, but in the beginning there was thought. Sorry, keep forgetting my T. That in the beginning there was thought. We couldn't have developed a language without the power of thought. The birds couldn't communicate in their language without the power of thought. The fact that trees communicate with each other is because they are endowed with the power of thought. If a poplar or certain maples get attacked by a pest, a caterpillar, they release a pheromone. And this is a pheromone that is known between the two species, between the two kingdoms, animal and plant, that the plant knows if I release this pheromone, that pest will not like it. There's knowledge there. There's knowledge between the two kingdoms. The pest disappears, which is brilliant, but then another marvelous thing happens is that the tree next to it realizes what's going on. It senses this pheromone and then releases its own pheromone, which in turn, the next releases their own pheromone. There is consciousness, there is an awareness within the tree, and the tree knows what to do. It knows what to do to react in order to save itself from being eaten. Now, I was reading the other day about some man who's been studying trees for a long time, and he realizes that they communicate audibly. They transmit vibration. That obviously means nothing to a human being, but to a tree it means something at a range of 200 hertz. And when one releases this vibration, another tree will react, and in turn they have a conversation. The human being doesn't like that idea. It can't comprehend it, and it thinks it's bollocks. But what you have is consciousness and thought, the power, the infinite knowledge behind the universe, creating an experience. And the more I've spent in these principles, the more I realize that that is what this life is. It's all experience. All of it. All the same stuff. The fearful, horrific, suicidal states that I've been in are the same as the states I was in last night when I was in pure joy and just in absolute awe of life. It's the same stuff. It's an experience. Created from a power that we call thought, power that we call consciousness, that ultimately is beyond a word, beyond any human word. We have to use a word because that's what we've got so used to in terms of communication, to convey a message. And we tend to, how much of our words do we actually think about? How much of our thought is done in words? How much do we use the word against ourselves? How much do we use the word against each other? How much do we use the word against this planet? Against nations? But the word isn't thought. The word, there is something that has allowed us to create that language. And when people get a sense of that, that's when I find that something really lights up for them. They get a sense of something that is far beyond their comprehension, far beyond anybody's comprehension. Even the most enlightened human being that is would say that it's just a divine mystery. How does this knowledge turn itself into a form? Don't know, but it does. How does this knowledge allow organisms that it has created to walk around and consume itself in a perpetual state? Science can't do that, but consciousness can. You start to see that consciousness is literally everything. That we are lived by a power that underpins the entire universe. We are but a part of it. We're not separate. None of us are separate. We're not separate from the trees. We are the trees. We're the same stuff. We're just pretending that we're not. With the fish, with the ocean, with the sun, with the moon, with the space in between it. We would never separate ourselves from we'd never separate the Earth from the solar system. We'd never separate the solar system from the galaxy. We'd never separate the galaxy from the universe, yet we separate ourselves from the Earth. We think we're separate. We think we're something else.
Dave?
Yeah.
Can I just... So I'm really... Okay, so... Not for you, not at all. I mean, I'm completely mesmerized. I mean, it's just... I've never heard you speak like this before. So I'm just so grateful that we're here to be able to hear you. But I suppose I also wanted to ask, you know, if Jeff or Joanne, or if that's Christelle, if anybody would like to say anything or comment, or, you know, yeah, that's just me. I'm just like, my mind just don't think, okay, then does anybody want to say anything? So I'm just giving people the opportunity. And if nobody has anything to say, then we can continue. Is that okay, Dave?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's just going to be pointing towards the same thing anyway.
It's all right. So, Joanne, Jeff, Xperia E5, any comments, questions? After I stopped you in your flow, I was going to say anything.
All I can say is wow.
Yeah.
That's all I want to say.
Thanks, Jo. Yeah, I echo that.
Yeah, I'll second that as well. I don't know, yeah, there's something that's occurred to me kind of like the past few months. Well, I suppose it's kind of related to this. How people are worried about the things that we're doing. What's it going to come to? Is it going to be that apocalyptic thing about, well, we're going to end all life on this planet if we don't buck our ideas up and things like that? And for some reason, it just struck me one day that, well, is that really true? Because we've had several mass extinction events on this planet. But somehow, for whatever reason, whatever, life comes back and repopulates the planet. I can't remember what the current scientific count, but it's kind of like, I think it's at least 4 or 5 mass extinctions that's happened on planet Earth. And to me, that just shows that the power that drives life is always going to be looking to power life. So even if we mess it up horribly and we wipe ourselves out and we wipe many other species along with us at the same time, that over time something else is going to emerge, because life likes life in whatever form that's going to come up for it. So yeah, so that's something I've been thinking about lately.
I love that, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It's like we are starting to wake up to an impact that a certain organism is having on this planet. And as far as I can see, it depends what people call life. It is possible to stop to destroy the physical part of the universe. But as science points towards that, when you have destruction, you instantly have creation. Something different has to happen. You can't stop it. You can't stop consciousness. You can't stop thought. It's impossible. There's nobody to stop it. It is what it is. It just is. Life just will. And the idea that we will destroy all life on planet, again, we have a separation from the whole. The we. When we start seeing us and them, this and that, we start going into a realm that is non-existent. The idea that we live our lives is an illusion. There is a power behind the universe that is powering every single thing, and it's powering us. I've realized I have, if any, the most minute, I don't even think I have a remotest bit of say as to what happens in my life. I think I do. The ego in me thinks the separation that the power of thought has allowed, has created within this organism, thinks that it has a say in life. But when you realize you don't actually know what you're going to think next until you have actually had that thought, who's running the show? Human beings can only ever be as good as what they think or whatever they think in the moment. They can't be anything else. Neither can a tree. Neither can a frog. Neither can a fish or the blackbird that's just landed just outside the window. The idea that there is a separate entity that is controlling itself is part of this illusion. Consciousness and thought are powering the whole thing. Consciousness and thought, well, like I said before, will exist once humanity ceases to exist. It will still be there, and it will be taking on whatever it takes on next. It's taking on form, but it will always exist. It's the most simple thing once it's seen. It's like there is only one thing ever happening. But countless things. My dog has an identity of his own. He has a totally different personality to Pebble, my mum's dog. He reacts to his name. He has consciousness and he thinks. He's very capable of learning words that I really wish that he wouldn't learn, then I would have a quieter time. I can't say certain words without him going mad. He's capable of learning all that stuff. The power of thought is well and truly endowed within Rusty. The power of thought is well and truly endowed within each and every single thing that goes on. Like I say, the knowledge that spans these kingdoms of different organisms on this planet is spanning an entire universe. Possibly far beyond that, I haven't got a clue. To bring it all back and see that the act of pollination, a bee going and removing pollen and depositing it in another flower, you see it as one action. You can see it's one thing happening. It looks like there's two things going on, but it's one thing. The thorn and the interaction with the nervous system is one thing going on. And then you kind of take that net with that knowledge and you cast it and you throw it, and whatever it lands on, you'll realize it's the same thing. It's knowledge living itself out. To me, to feel that realization as a sensory organism was just one of the most beautiful feelings that I'd ever had. It was exciting. It was exciting to see it, to see this knowledge that we're not separate from, that thought is not separate from consciousness, and that thought isn't just the stuff that we listen to inside our heads. It's far greater. The only way I can liken it to is like if my arm is as infinite as, it's infinite, but I take a shaving off the end of my finger with a fingernail, the dust that comes off would be the cognitive thought that runs through our mind. This knowledge is powering an entire universe, like I said. And it interacts with itself. It experiences itself. Whatever we think about our effects on the planet, consciousness has done it. The knowledge behind the universe has done it. If the knowledge behind the universe decides that, hang on, I want these organisms to clean their act up, it will allow us to. But the way I see it is that the idea of a me to have a choice, the idea of a me to be able to make up my own mind doesn't exist. I will receive thought. I will receive a thought, and I will be as good as the thought that I have in that moment. If I suddenly change my mind, that's because I've had another thought that has pointed me in that direction. And I see this when I'm really upset. And then I've been upset for half an hour, and then, oh, hang on. You're experiencing thought. You're not experiencing the world. Why did that come to me half an hour later? If I had a choice, I would never choose misery. I would never choose. I would never have chosen depression, and I certainly wouldn't have chosen the suicidal experience that I had before I woke up to whatever these principles are. At some point, thoughts change. They're always in constant flux. They're constantly changing, but at some point we realize, and then it looks like we have choice. Like I say, if we had choice, we would just choose. But that's not what consciousness sees. Consciousness sees that all experience. It doesn't see a good and bad experience, a happy and sad experience. It just sees experience. And then you realize that that's what life is. It's experience. It's all just experience. And just to say it's just experience does it absolutely no justice, because it's not just experience. It's phenomenal. The universe endows things with the ability to go out and create experience and think that it's on its own. What a brilliant thing to do. Oh, that's a freaking awesome thing to do. I think that's brilliant.
Dave, I'm just going to interject there, and I'm a brave woman to come and stop Dave's flow. I'm just conscious that we've got like probably 8 minutes towards the end, and I suppose I just wanted to ask if there were any other questions, but also to ask, we'll ask that first. Any questions or any comments anybody wants to make? I suppose for me, what I loved what you said was that, I suppose my take on it was like the illusion that we're living our lives. Well, that's what I heard you say. And I love that, because it's true. If we, and I think this is how sometimes when we speak about these principles in the community, we use that language like, well, I'm creating my experience. And it's like, well, if I had that choice to create my experience, then I'd be creating different experiences than depression and sadness. And it is that, it's that, you know, when you look at it from that perspective, you start thinking, well, all I do is realize I'm really not the one who's choosing and thinking, okay, I'm having that experience and that experience. The best that we've got is to realize what's coming before us, and if that makes sense because of the different filters we've got on, then that becomes our experience. But there's no controlling it. And I love that when you're saying in pointing towards the oneness of all things. Like you said, that we're not separate. There isn't an I. I'm not living Janet's life. It's all an illusion. And it is that. I love when you said about the consciousness. And I just love when you talk about the plants and the thorns and the plant that you've got there with mimosa, all of that. I'm just like amazed because you see it. I don't see it. I can blame it on being in the city. That's not true. I'm just don't have an interest. It's just like, until you start speaking about it, it's like, oh, that's so true.
It's funny, I had a lady come to my group on Monday and she said, hang on. I thought this was we were going to be talking about the mind. We are. We are talking about the mind. People think the mind is within them, that they have their own mind. People say, I have my own mind. We don't. There's one thing going on. There's one mind. It's the same mind that is allowing the water molecules to go up into the air at the moment and then condense and drop. And wherever they drop, away from a river, life becomes. Life on earth becomes. There is a knowing that is allowing life to spread across a planet. It incorporates the weather. You look at a dandelion clock. You've got knowledge of movements of air molecules. It produces a seed that we call sugar stealers, the little things where you blow them. It's really clever. It's gone, I don't need to do anything. I'll just produce a seed like this and I'm just going to let the air molecules do all the work. Blow them about. I can cover massive ground by doing that. Knowledge and interaction of all things. That's what this universe is.
Beautiful. Dave, we've got 3 minutes left. I'm very, controlling. I'm managing the time.
I need managing. Do some paperwork for me. Real first world problems and all that.
Well, so I just wanted to, because to me this has just been mesmerizing, and even more so, it just reinforces to me just to do more stuff. But that's me. But what stuff's coming up for you right now, Dave? What things are you interested in? What things are you involved in right now? What projects?
At the end of this month, I think it's the 28th and 29th. 27th and 28th. They organised me. Somebody organised me. That's the thought that doesn't seem to come to this one. Mm-hmm. Organisational thoughts. 27th and 28th of August, myself and Ian Watson are doing a weekend seminar in Kendal, Cumbria, UK, for those that are in the UK. And it's going to be a 2-day event. I'm busy building a website and starting a business called Freedom Thinking. Where that's going to go, I haven't got a clue. But it's something that this organism feels compelled to do. I would love to. I'd love to do whatever it is. It's like I'd love to just go out and help. I remember looking at a beach covered in litter. And if we're going to come down to a human ego level, which we all do, which everything we all experience, this human ego right here, decided that if it really wants to help the environment, the best way to help the environment is to help human beings.
Mhm.
So that's what I feel driven towards.
It's so true.
Nice. And how can people contact you? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I got myself a really simple email address. And that is Dave, D-A-V, dot Elleray, E-L-L-E-R-A-Y, hyphen, I think that's a hyphen, minus sign. Number 3, principles at outlook.com. Dave.Elleray hyphen number 3 principles, not number 3, but 3 principles at outlook.com.
I'll put it in the group.
Or they can Facebook me, Dave Elleray.
Dave, just thank you so much. I also know that you've been out to South Africa recently, and I think you're looking to go out to do that again.
Yeah, looking to go back out to South Africa. Jenny Kennard and myself have been out there doing some work with a charity called Africa to Come. And this is about, it works with people within townships and empowerment of the black people of South Africa. When I went out in December, I was struck by I know they've come a long way, but still a massive divide, and something that I personally wasn't used to. And we decided there and then that we wanted to do something to help them. As life has it, we managed to get a conversation with the person who has the biggest charity in South Africa, and he liked what we had to talk about. So we've been back out to South Africa, and it's been awesome. So we're looking to go back out in September, October, November. We haven't decided yet, but go back out and continue with the program that we got started with some of the core staff in the charity.
Nice. Dave, thank you so much for a phenomenal conversation. Like I said, I have never heard it spoken about like that. It's going to go viral. That's all I'm going to say. It's just been wonderful. And yeah, I from the bottom of my heart, just thank you. Thank you for sharing what you've seen and these new insights and the freshness of it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Like I said right at the beginning, thank you.
And to all our participants, just thank you for listening and for being here.
Janet, are you okay with us sharing this once it's posted?
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been amazing.
Yeah.
I've been around these principles for a while, and this was beyond description. It really is. It's beyond words.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm thinking about writing a book. I'd like to write a book as well. So
it'll be phenomenal. Nice. So yeah, I'll sorry, Jeff.
Be sure to do an audio book.
With my lovely dulcet.
Your voice was part of what was going on here today.
Yeah, I agree.
Somebody once said to me, they said, "So where are you from?" That's a down south accent in England. They said, "Where are you from? You from Czechoslovakia?" I was like, I don't think Czechoslovakia exists anymore.
Oh, hello. So Dave, again, thank you once again. Anybody feel free to contact Dave. I know Dave has got a wonderful and giving heart, and yeah, just talk on a one-to-one with him. It's just amazing. So thank you, everybody. I'll be back again next week with my guest, Christian McNeil. And the reason why Christian's going to be speaking is that we're talking about stepping into the unknown. I've got a few clients who like to, like me, control the time, control stuff, and being everything in order. But Christian, quite recently, within the last 12 to 18 months, has just really I suppose, let go of everything that she believes to be true, and has truly just stepped out in faith and living her life moment by moment. It's just been really wonderful. So I look forward to having that conversation with Christian next week, and hopefully you can join me next week too. So thank you, everybody, and take care, and I will be seeing you and speaking with you again soon.
I love you.
PJ, love you. Take care, everybody.